These series of videos are demonstrating how to automate economic policy through code. A link to the GitHub repository is included in the video description. In the previous video, we learned how to create a transaction by adding the remaining approval to a transaction request with the request approved service. In this video, we're touring the client. We'll learn the development commands and locate the code for the screens, routes, and requests used to create a transaction request, view them, and view transaction history. Okay. Command-Shift-P to open the editor command palette. Type reopen in container, and assuming you have Docker running, hit enter. You can test for running services by opening a shell and run make list pids. No services here, so make start to spin up your stack. Copy the client address from the Ports tab in the Editors panel and navigate to the client in a browser. The first screen is the landing screen. Duplicate the Browser tab. Now sign in with the grocery store account without a password to display the home screen. Duplicate this tab and click the menu button to open the menu. Select the request menu item to navigate to the request screen. This is where your transaction requests appear. We started with a fresh database, so we'll quickly create a transaction request using the in-editor HTTP client. Select the Collections tab, open GraphQL, select Create Request, and send. Back to the browser and refresh. There's the transaction request. Duplicate this tab and select the transaction request card to display the request details screen. This screen displays the details of a transaction request. Duplicate again and reopen the menu. Now select the History button to navigate to the History screen where transactions are displayed. No transactions here, so we'll go back to the editor and send an approve request to populate this screen. Open the neighboring approve request entry. Hit send. Switch back to the browser and refresh. There's the new transaction. Duplicate the tab one more time, then select the card to display a history detail screen. Okay, let's summarize. The screens in this client are 1. The landing screen, routed by /. 2. The home screen, routed by /account. 3. The request screen, routed by /requests. 4. The request details screen, routed by /requests /transaction ID as the path parameter. 5. The history screen, with a /history route. And 6. The history detail screen, with /history /transaction ID again as the path parameter. Okay, where are these 6 routes and their screens declared in the code? Switch back to the editor, close these, and open the client directory from project root. Then source and routes. With this package, routes are set by directory structure under the routes directory, with the /path mapped to that routes directory. And the landing screen code is located in this plus page file. The route for the home screen, or /account, is set by this account directory. The plus page file in there stores the code for that screen. The request screen route is set by the requests directory. The screen code for that route is in the plus page file stored in there. The requests detail route is set by the requests slug subdirectory, with slug mapped to the number in the URL, or 3. There's a plus page file in there. And the history and history detail routes are declared similarly to the request's routes. Okay, that is how routes work in this package. Landing screen, home screen, requests, history, and their slugs are routed by directory structure. Now, as said before, you navigate to the slash or root path. The web client loads the route directory's plus page file. To add features to everything under the root route, use the plus layout file. You can toss in some styling, a GraphQL client, whatever you want. Let's test the difference between plus page and plus layout in the routes directory. Add a paragraph element to the plus page, and it appears on the landing screen, but it isn't on the home screen. Now add a paragraph element to plus layout. It's available on the home screen and the landing screen. So globals stay in plus layout. Okay, when navigated to the root route, you get a landing screen. And when developing locally, we are okay to insert an account name which is available in the test database and click Sign In without a password. Open Landing under the Containers directory, and you can see the Sign In Submit button calls a handle sign in function which navigates to the account screen on Submit. Okay, 1 screen down, 5 to go. In the Routes directory, drop down into the Accounts subdirectory, and open the plus page file in there to show the screen code for the /account route, or home screen. This page enables the web client user to create a transaction request. Select debit if you want to pay someone, or credit if you want someone to pay you. The debit credit button looks like a battery, doesn't it? Ownership of values recorded measure flows in one direction, and the ownership of goods and services flows in the opposite direction. Let's open up the browser's dev tools with Command-Option-I so we can see console logging. And this balance indicator here at the top is currently configured to print whatever transaction item list the user is building when you click it. So click it, and the current list of transaction items is printed to the console. We haven't inserted any values in the UI, so the list just has an empty transaction item object. Now, when the isCredit boolean is true in this screen, your account is added as the creditor in the transaction items list you're building. Create a credit request selling Jacob Webb some butter. Now click the balance indicator to print the current transaction items the client is building. Your account appears as the creditor in the transaction items you're adding. When isCredit is false, and we're selecting the debit button to switch the boolean, your account is switched to the debitor. Print the transaction request again. You're a debitor. So you can see this account screen just builds a list of transaction items and sends it to GraphQL. The other feature worth noting about this screen is how it pulls the rules service when the user changes the list of transaction items. For example, switch the transaction request back to a credit request, and notice the rule-added tax transaction item returned from the rules service was re-added. That happens here in the plus page code in the routes account directory. Now, we are double timing it through the rest of this client because anyone with a little JavaScript and HTML under their belt can figure out how components are arranged by following their import statements and reading them like they were HTML elements. Again to the request screen code located in the routes request plus page file. This screen just fetches requests by account using GraphQL. The request screen is empty again because we approved the last one. We'll create another transaction request so we can see it in action. Create request again from the editor. Now refresh. That's this code. Moving on to the request detail screen. This transaction request was approved, so the screen is no longer current. We'll point it to the one we created moments ago. Note the ID of 4 returned by the request create service. Increment the transaction ID path parameter to 4 in the URL. The request detail screen code in the routes request slug directory just fetches the transaction request by ID, and it'll show you approve and reject buttons if you're signed in as Jacob Webb. Those you can find down lower in the plus page file. The history screen code in the routes history plus page file fetches transactions by account. The history detail screen code in the routes history slug plus page file fetches a transaction and displays the details. Since requests can be rejected, to quickly inform the requester the transaction isn't happening, these pages are called history. They're not all transactions. Now, this was all simply styled high-level product code not suitable for a production environment. What matters here is learning how humans daily engage a data structure for an efficient and fair market. Security, optimization, and redundancy will follow. Okay, open a shell and make stop to tear down your stack. And Command-Shift-P reopen folder locally to stop your dev container. In the next video, we're tackling config, which when poorly designed, kills enterprise software development productivity. You may subscribe, share, and contribute from the buttons and links in the description.